Instead, we have the opportunity to make a habit of empathy, to recognize ourselves in each other.
Hi, it's Edwin Rutsch, and this is Dialogues on Building a Culture of Empathy and Compassion. And I'm here today with Meg Lyons. Thank you, Meg, for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And you're coming to us live from the streets of Pakistan. You're driving in a car in the what the city is that?
Yes.
What city are you in?
I'm in Karachi.
Oh, Karachi. So you're
I'm
just
in,
uh-huh. So, Meg, you're the executive officer of the Charter for Compassion in Pakistan. Is that right?
yes, I am. Yeah, I've been working on this project for about a year now, and it's myself and then also about two other people who are working on the team.
And well, I thought that we could first maybe get to know you a little bit, and then go into kind of the, what you're doing there with the Charter for Compassion. And starting off, I was wondering what's your most important value personally in life?
I think courage. I guess, but I have three sort of main ones. If I had to sort of order them, courage would be first, dignity, and then action.
So, in terms of, if you kind of look over your life, is there a moment where you kind of, really gained some kind of insight, into the nature of courage and said, this is really important to me? Is there some kind of a story or something that happened?
I mean, I don't know if there was one. It's sort of one of those things that you realize and then re-realize over the course of your life through different situations. I just never named it as courage as such, but sort of the ability to be vulnerable, I guess, by pursuing your own ideas and your own creativity, wherever that might lead, even though you never really know if you're right or if you're going to succeed or if it's going to work out. You're kind of living in that uncertainty, and that takes a lot of heart and a lot of courage, and sort of something that I have, I guess, just realized over and over again through many different situations which put you in that sort of in the face of uncertainty.
So it's really about just being able to express yourself, for kind of what's real and alive for you. And just...
Yeah, exactly. And it spills over into your work, into your own spirituality, into your relationships, into everything, really.
Is there a time when you kind of learned a lesson about that? Did your like parents kind of always teach you that, or was it just something that somehow slowly developed? You don't even know like how, or...
I don't know. I think that it's not something that I've really mastered either. And it's not something that my parents taught me. It's more kind of something that I've had to develop and that I'm still working on in terms of being able to put yourself out there.
Well, you're going to Pakistan. I guess that's really putting yourself out there, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, what is it, executive officer of the Charter for Compassion there? Or what is that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah, is that you're the director of the program in Pakistan for the Charter for Compassion?
Yeah, pretty much. So basically, the organization itself was founded by a Pakistani philanthropist and businessman. So he had met Karen Armstrong, who started the whole Charter for Compassion initiative globally, and then he decided he wanted to bring this initiative to Pakistan. And at that time, I was doing some work with him, so he asked me if I wanted to sort of stay in Pakistan because I was working here already, and helped launch it. And basically, we started an NGO under the banner of that idea. And I basically became the, I guess, project manager or program manager of the entire thing. So I'm essentially running the NGO and then all the projects that we've started.
Oh, yeah, I'm on the Charter for Compassion Facebook page, and it shows like almost 45,000 people have joined.
Yeah.
So we have a good.
Yeah, and that's only since we just started officially in July last year, so we're doing pretty good.
And you've got a website, charterforcompassion.org.pk for Pakistan?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just showing that on the screen here, so anyone can go and check it out as well. So what is it that you're doing there? What's the kind of the overall project, and kind of what kind of initiatives are you doing?
Well, basically most of our projects are trying to apply the idea of compassion to different sectors of the society. Basically trying to transform the individuals within that society, and then also the society itself. And within the Pakistani context, that's basically looking at education, media, and business. Those are sort of the areas in the society where we can actually work and do some really interesting projects. And so within those different sections, we're basically trying to increase people's understanding of what compassion is, what the benefits of compassion are, and then also what are the things they can do to help themselves foster compassion. And basically we're working kind of on the back of a lot of Karen's work on this topic. So a lot of our projects have been born out of her book called 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life. Mm-hmm. And so basically we're looking at doing education on compassion as a skill. And then we have different compassion skills which we're trying to highlight in our training. So there's about 10 of them, 10 compassion skills which we're working with. So things like self-compassion, empathy, courage is one of them, generosity, loving kindness, mindfulness. We have action, and is that 10? Gratitude is one of them. So there's 10 in total. Mm-hmm. And we're basically doing education on all these different skills, and we've started a couple of different projects to do that. One of the main ones right now is the Compassionate School Network, and this is essentially looking at transforming the school system through introducing this education and training to teachers who will then teach their students, and then also building these kinds of values into the educational school policy and value system as well.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. So, you were talking about the compassion, and I find that sometimes talking about, instead of just direct definitions, a metaphor for these words. So do you have a metaphor, like, for example, for compassion, for example, with empathy, it's often defined as the standing in someone else's shoes, looking through someone else's eyes, and for me, empathy is like a cornucopia. And so for you, do you have like a metaphor of what compassion is like to you?
No, I think that there's sort of a difficulty with compassion because, and this is what we've been sort of struggling with when we've been doing our work, because compassion is has many different manifestations. I think in terms of how it's expressed and what builds it, and as a sort of umbrella concept. And this is why we've sort of taken the perspective that compassion is a skill, and then looking at compassion as being expressed through these different things, such as empathy, that feeling of empathy, or the feeling of gratitude, or the feeling of generosity.
So it sounds like you don't have a kind of a metaphor right off the bat. Like for me, like empathy is like a cornucopia in the sense that as I empathize with others, it kind of like opens this door to kind of their feelings, their experiences, And so that's kind of like this sense of cornucopia of feelings and thoughts and insights and creativity. And for me, the opposite of that would be like a desert, of a just a hot, dry desert that's kind of lonely and disconnected. So I guess I was trying to give you some ideas here to stimulate some metaphor, maybe.
Well, no, actually, I mean, it's been something I've thought about a lot, obviously, because I've been thinking about compassion and trying to come up with realistic projects within this context for about a year. But I haven't been able to, because I don't think that, I don't know. I mean, some people have talked about it in terms of, I think most people when they're trying to define compassion, they use empathy. But I don't think that actually, in terms of a definition, but I don't think that actually captures what it is. And that's why we've taken the perspective of looking at these different skills and how these skills help us to manifest compassion, whether you believe that's a feeling or attitude or action. Some people don't think that it's a feeling, it's something you do, and I think that's kind of more the direction that we're going, is that it's not something that you feel, it's something that you do, it's an action, it's a certain kind of practice. So
okay,
we're still trying to get there.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're still kind of working on the definition of compassion, but you see these different components of gratitude and empathy and courage, which is kind of your value too, that you're talking about. So how do you see the relationship of courage and compassion then?
Courage is a really interesting one when it comes to compassion, because compassion is looking at, to be compassionate to someone, it's not only giving them things and helping them and aiding them, it's also stopping people from doing things that are wrong. Or it can also be a sort of tough love, and that, you have to, as a parent, for example, put boundaries and say no to your children, and that is actually compassion too. And that takes a lot of courage, because it's not always easy to have those kinds of conversations with people, or with your children, or with your husband, or or whatever. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. So it's
and then also, I mean, it's not easy to be compassionate. It's actually really, really hard. Really hard. So it takes a lot of courage to put your sort of foot to the ground
and kind of
be practicing this on a day-to-day basis.
So it sounds like the courage is really about expressing yourself and kind of not, it's like in the 50s here in the United States, women were told to, just think about others and not to express what was going on for them and what their truth was. That was kind of and so maybe the courage is to express who you are and what you're feeling, and not just hold other people's humanity, but also hold your own too.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So what are you seeing is the relationship? I'm kind of focused on the empathy part, at the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. So I always have these kind of dialogues with, people that are kind of focused on compassion. Like, what's the relationship of empathy and compassion for you?
I mean, I think for me, a lot of acting compassionately is being able to see from the other person's perspective, or as they always say, put yourself in the other person's shoes. And that ability to kind of take the perspective of the other is something that is essential. It's sort of a critical ability or thing to be able to do in order to be compassionate. Without it, you wouldn't be able to. It'd be very difficult.
So it's like maybe a starting
point. So that's
point.
sort of the way that I
Yeah, you have to first to be able to be compassionate. You have to be able to see the other person and how you're affecting them, and so you kind of need that quality of empathy to connect with others.
Mm-hmm.
So in your work, what kind of obstacles are you coming across in terms of promoting promoting compassion there in Pakistan?
I mean, first one, I guess, is like we touched on, is defining compassion. It's not very easy. There's a lot of work going on in terms of scientific research, neuroscience, and in positive psychology, and also in religion. And each one has a sort of are approaching different definitions, but there's sort of no consensus. So that can make it hard to express to people. And that's why we've taken rather than focusing on what it is, where people seem to have their own subjective understanding of what it is. So we're allowing people to have their own subjective understanding, but more focusing on giving them the tools to increase compassionate action in their lives, compassionate living. So that's been a major obstacle. And then obviously, I mean, being in Pakistan presents its own opportunities and then also challenges as well. Mainly opportunities, actually, because people in the society are very, very open to this kind of thing because they're facing a lot of conflict and violence and things like that in the day-to-day. So when you're talking about compassion, people are like, yes, we want this, we want to practice it, we want to help, we want to be a part of it. We think that our people are actually compassionate, and there's a lot going on, and we want to share our stories and things like that. So, I mean, it's very contextually relevant here. Then there's also certain sensitivities because of the tension that exists in Pakistan at the moment. So in terms of, trying to look at compassion from a religious perspective, from an Islamic perspective, is really important to people, because obviously that's the way that they that's the way they orientate their lives is through and by religion, like a lot of people. So looking at, it's really important, I think, in terms of bringing this concept back to Islam in a Muslim country and looking at what the Quran says about compassion. So that's something that we've been really focused on from the beginning, is making it relevant to people in that way. So that's been really positive too. So again, some problems are often opportunities as well. So I mean, this is sort of the way that it's been here. But yeah, I think that's it. There hasn't been a lot of obstacles. More sort of work related, in terms of doing this kind of work isn't easy because it tends to be very abstract, and you're constantly sort of working at trying to make concrete for people, and make projects that are going to actually work and are actually going to continue and be manageable in terms of teaching somebody about compassion. How am I going to do that, and what are the most relevant activities that I can use, that are going to be easy for people to manage. So that's sort of constantly for the past year I've been working on trying to feel like I've been working on trying to make something really abstract into concrete, contextually relevant projects that are going to work given the existing structure and system of the society. So that is a lot of fun.
Oh, you're enjoying that.
Yeah.
Well, so what you're saying is that that compassion, it's kind of somewhat undefined, and that kind of it's a little bit of an obstacle then, because it's hard to kind of maybe articulate it, but that you're kind of focusing on maybe the action component of it. How do you actually take an action and implement maybe a curriculum or some kind of activities like that? And you're also trying to integrate it into the context there, which is kind of, I guess, Islam, the religion. And how does compassion relate to Islam, and what text or something maybe referred to in the history of how compassion was articulated in that tradition?
Yeah, there's a lot in that respect, because in terms of stories of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and also in terms of the Quran, actually every chapter, except with the exception of one chapter of the Quran, starts with in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. So there's a huge, the idea of compassion is something that's huge in Islam. And then also things like gratitude and all that. So we have a rich amount of texts and things that we can use and draw on, which is great.
Well, it looks like you maybe have arrived at your destination there, or so. Do you have any? I don't know how much time you have, but do you have any final thoughts or something that you'd like to share?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that you touched on everything. That your questions are actually right on point. So.
Okay, well, this was a lot of fun. This is the first call I've done like this in a car. It's amazing what the technology, how it can connect us all over the world. So,
well, thank you so much for arranging this.
Yeah, thank you for taking part in it. So I hope we can keep in contact and hear more about what's going on there and how your work develops.
Would love to.
Okay, goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Instead, we have the opportunity to make a habit of empathy, to recognize ourselves in each other.